We are done with Lakewood Ranch. But if you're thinking about moving to Lakewood Ranch, I don't want to discourage you. I've talked to a lot of other people who are residents here and they don't agree with my opinion. And I don't expect you to agree with my opinion because it's based on personal reasons. Overall, Lakewood Ranch is a great community. And just about everybody that I talk to that's moved here absolutely loves it. But we are just about done with our Lakewood Ranch experience, and on today's video, I want to fill you in on the reasons why Lakewood Ranch probably isn't going to be a forever home for us. For practical purposes, Lakewood Ranch is anything east of 75 in Sarasota or in Bradenton. The northern half is in Manatee County, and the southern half is in Sarasota County. The internet says that there's about 30,000 people who live in Lakewood Ranch, but that's like the old Lakewood Ranch map. Within the new area that's considered Lakewood Ranch, there's easily over 112,000 people. When I first moved here, it was a great suburban area, but as of recently, along these walls, there's people that go behind these walls, so we're gonna see if there is in fact a homeless camp here in Lakewood Ranch. So there are now homeless people here in Lakewood Ranch. So here we got a piece of cardboard, another piece of cardboard, so somebody is living here behind this wall. You got a battery to charge a phone with a solar panel, and you got a piece of cardboard here. Looks like there's a trail over here. You can see there's a tarp right here, guys. See the blue tarp right there? You got gated communities all through there. You got beautiful gated communities over there, right? Got a Gatorade bottle sitting right there. So right behind us is Bradenton, Florida, and they've been putting a lot of pressure on the homeless there. So they've pushed the homeless further into the suburbs. As Bradenton cracks down on their homeless problem, the homeless people have been moving further and further into the suburbs. You know, all these large gated communities, they have a lot of like easements on the side. So all around the outskirts of these gated communities are a lot of places for people to hide. So, you know, you're living in your gated community over there and you're not aware that in the woods right behind your gated community are people living in the woods. It'd be pretty difficult for somebody to detect them. So what you're starting to see in Lakewood Ranch now is stuff like this. This guy's got a bicycle, he's got a book bag and some rope, so he's building a homeless camp somewhere. So the crazy thing is that there's a new trap house in Lakewood Ranch, and as soon as this trap house opens, you instantly have all the homeless people follow. So, and we're having car break-ins in our community on the daily. So this person was on a bicycle, and I think they disappeared somewhere around here. So they're gonna be in this little area, which is pretty close to the trap house. So recently, while Uber driving in Lakewood Ranch, I've discovered that there's trap houses out here, and as soon as the trap houses opened, a flood of homeless people came to Lakewood Ranch. This is on the intersection of Highway 70 and Lorraine, which is pretty far into Lakewood Ranch. You're usually not going to have a vast homeless population if you don't have a distribution point, but now that there are distribution points here in Lakewood Ranch, you've seen an onslaught of homeless people from Bradenton move out here. When I first moved to Lakewood Ranch 3 years ago, homeless people out here were practically unheard of. Every once in a while you'd get a loner. I remember about a year and a half ago, this one lonely homeless guy with a dog set up camp literally underneath my balcony, and I kind of just ignored it and he left eventually. It wasn't a big deal. But now it isn't just lonely homeless people here or there. You're having entire homeless compounds move in all at once following the distribution points that now exist in Lakewood Ranch. As you may already know, Bradenton next door, our closest city, is a drug-infested crap hole, and it's also very expensive because it's got great beaches. It now costs practically about the same to live in crime-infected Bradenton as it does to live in Lakewood Ranch, and this has prompted a lot of people who would normally live in Bradenton to end up in Lakewood Ranch, and it's turned Lakewood Ranch into Bradenton. 3 years ago, when I moved to Lakewood Ranch, it was 95% white people. Most of them were retired, but today it's become a bougie suburb. There are gated communities that are pretty expensive, and these are still relatively nice places to live, but that's kind of a little bit outside of my budget. See, there's really two sides to Lakewood Ranch. There's the fancy gated communities, and then there's these apartment complexes. It isn't exactly the same Lakewood Ranch experience as you're getting in a gated golf course community. Don't get me wrong, these are still gated apartment complexes. with pools and gyms and walking trails, but it isn't exactly suburban people living in these apartments anymore. It's basically McDonald's workers now. 3 years ago when I moved to Lakewood Ranch, it was mostly retired people that were living here. Today, it's mostly people who work mediocre jobs and are making Lakewood Ranch work because they have 3 roommates and are slanging on the side. There's really no nice way of saying it, but Lakewood Ranch has become a bougie suburb. Similar to what happened in Riverview and Brandon and Valrico, these might have been attractive places to live many years ago, but as of today, the demographics of Lakewood Ranch have changed, and so has its appeal to somebody like myself. And that is because Lakewood Ranch is also a absolutely soulless suburb. And don't get me wrong, there's restaurants that play live music, and there's people driving golf carts on the streets and an occasional luxury vehicle on the road, but that doesn't give a place life. Lakewood Ranch is about as bland and soulless as a suburb comes. And I was okay with that because it was a safe place full of retired white people, and I'm cool with that. If it's safe and whatever, I'm cool with that, right? But the issue has become that Lakewood Ranch is no longer that safe, clean suburb that it once was. Some of these apartment complexes that are in my price range have become about 70% foreign nationals. Most of them are individuals that have a student visa and are here to study. It's the spoiled rich kids from other countries. You may remember that about 2 months ago, we had a case where somebody on a student visa from Chile broke into a house here in Lakewood Ranch, and the homeowner shot and killed the individual. Turns out that the individual was somebody from Chile on a student visa. The other burglar that was arrested, he went to court and he told the judge that he thought breaking into somebody's house unarmed wasn't a big deal. It wasn't an armed robbery. It was just breaking into a house that we thought was empty. Like, what's the big deal? Why did this guy have to shoot us? Most people in the United States understand that if you break into somebody's house committing a felony and your burglar buddy that's with you gets shot and dies, you're now going to be facing a homicide charge because you had somebody get killed in the commission of a felony. Apparently, in whatever country he came from, it's okay to break into somebody's house as long as nobody's armed in the process. Well, here in the United States, if you break into somebody's house, there's a good possibility you're going to get shot and killed. And if you're doing it with your buddy and he gets shot and killed, now you're facing homicide charges. The craziest thing about this case is that the burglar that was caught didn't even recognize the severity of what he was doing because he was unfamiliar with the laws of the United States. And this is really a problem that we have here in Lakewood Ranch. You got all these foreign students that don't really understand how the United States actually works. I don't have a problem with student visas and people coming over here to study, but when I moved to Lakewood Ranch 3 years ago, this was all rich, retired white people, and now it's become student housing. I don't want to live in student housing. I didn't move here for student housing. When I first moved to Lakewood Ranch, you had the rich retired people. A lot of them have left Florida, and the immigrants that used to work for them. It was a nice balanced mix of people. Today, you have all these rich spoiled kids from other countries that don't know the rules, don't respect the rules. They're not from here. It creates a very transient community, and that opens up the opportunity for a lot of criminal activities. A lot of criminal activities that aren't the same types of criminal activities that we're used to seeing here in the United States. It just isn't a community anymore. It's become too transient. I really didn't like the demographical transformation that Lakewood Ranch underwent. It went from like people that were retired moving to Florida. You had all these nice people from Maryland and from New Jersey. All of a sudden, everything changed in the state of Florida, and now you have all these students coming here, and it isn't the type of community that I pay so much money to live in. On top of that, all these areas we're driving through right now, this used to be nothing but woods 3 years ago. I used to ride my bicycles all through here and explore the woods. None of that exists. Everything here has been developed, and it feels like when I moved to Lakewood Ranch, it was kind of like more country feel, and now it's literally a fast-growing suburb. There just isn't anything left for me to explore. It's all one giant, never-ending construction site. So the demographics have changed. The homeless from Bradenton have moved in here. The only thing that hasn't changed is the ridiculous price tag of living in Lakewood Ranch. When you throw my utilities in the mix, we're at almost $3,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment living here. If I'm going to pay this kind of money to live somewhere, it's going to be a Miami or a big city. I am paying big city prices to live in a suburban bougie suburb, and it isn't worth it. 3 years ago, when we moved to Lakewood Ranch, it was expensive, but it was still cheaper than living in Fort Myers. Today, rents in Fort Myers are $600 less than Lakewood Ranch. Now, you couldn't pay me to move back to Fort Myers. I wouldn't want to live there. But back then, the incentive of living in Lakewood Ranch is that it was cheaper than Fort Myers and it was a better metropolitan area. So if I'm going to be paying these ridiculous prices to live somewhere, I might as well move to Miami or Orlando, a bigger city that has more things to do and is only a few $100s more. Now again, I'm already paying a ridiculous amount of money to live in a bougie suburb, so I might as well cough up a few $100s more a month and live in a great place like Miami. Lakewood Ranch was an incredible deal 3 years ago. The problem is the prices have adjusted just about everywhere. Like I said, in Fort Myers, rents are down $600 a month. Lakewood Ranch hasn't adjusted. It's not going to because there's so many people that want to live here because of the schools. And now with all the new immigration things going on, chances are we're going to see even more people on student visas move to this area. So the biggest problem that Florida has is the lack of jobs and opportunities. Because this metropolitan area actually has jobs and opportunities, it's become a lot more attractive and thus it's made this area more competitive. So while other places like Fort Myers, the rents have dropped, this area hasn't. Fort Myers has had to adjust their prices from 3 years ago, but Lakewood Ranch hasn't had to, and the entire coastline got destroyed by those hurricanes, which means that a housing crunch of a small level is taking place here. So while everywhere else in Florida there's been an adjustment in rent prices, it hasn't happened here. But at the same time, the more people move here, young people in particular, the less jobs opportunities this metropolitan area has to offer, something that in the past wasn't an issue because it was mostly older retired people. You completely replace the demographics of people who needed services with people who provide services, and now you have the same elevated housing costs, but the demographics of the people have changed from people who need and use services to people who are looking for jobs. It's made the job place more competitive, and the housing market hasn't adjusted to anything. On top of that, Bradenton gets hit by a hurricane, the whole coastline gets destroyed, all the rich people are looking to move further inland. You have an explosion of crime and homelessness in Bradenton to where now even the homeless people are afraid to live in Bradenton and they're moving into Lakewood Ranch. And let's not forget that one of the reasons we paid so much money to live here was the amazing beaches that we used to have here before the hurricanes. Let's not forget that the hurricanes absolutely destroyed this coastline. And after the hurricanes destroyed this coastline, it hasn't been the same. Why the crap am I paying almost $3,000 to live in a beach town in Florida when the beaches here are completely destroyed now? The reason we were paying all this crazy money to live here was so at least we could enjoy incredible beaches. Now we're paying these crazy price tags to live here and the beaches completely suck. The water clarity hasn't been the same. The red tide has been persistent. And let's not forget that we've had windy days nonstop for some reason I don't understand. You practically can't enjoy the beaches anymore. Those great beaches created great tourism and interest in this area, and that equaled income for me and my wife. But with a destroyed coastline, there's no more interest from tourists to come here. Without tourism, we don't have income. So now we're stuck paying the same price tag from before, but the economical opportunities that existed here because of tourism don't exist here anymore. Our YouTube channel was blowing up. Everybody wanted to move down here. People were vacationing down here. With a destroyed coastline, nobody cares to come down here. Our income is down 30%, but our rent hasn't gone down $1. If we want to live this suburban lifestyle that we're living, we have to live in a city where there's enough economical activity to finance that lifestyle. When we first moved to Sarasota, we definitely had that going on. There was definitely enough going on in this metropolitan area to where we could make enough money to supplement this lifestyle. But now that the income sources are gone and the prices remain the same, this doesn't make a lot of sense to us. If I'm going to pay this kind of money to live somewhere, there has to be an incentive. There was a huge economical incentive to live here when we first moved. The hurricanes put a damper on that. So did the demographic changes that this area has experienced. You have a younger demographic, which means that there's more competition for income. But then on top of that, you're also in a bland suburb. If I'm going to live somewhere where there's young people with a high demand for income because of the high cost of living, it's going to be a fun place. I'm paying Miami prices or Nashville prices to live in a freaking boring suburb. I'm okay with those things, okay? But they can't exist in a place that I don't enjoy. And endemically, we do not enjoy Lakewood Ranch. The restaurants out here are way too expensive. Even when we first moved to Lakewood Ranch and our economy was better, we couldn't afford the restaurants here. Walking into a restaurant in Lakewood Ranch, you're going to spend at least $100. And if there were restaurants we enjoyed and food we liked, it wouldn't be a problem. See, the problem is that despite the fact the demographics of this area have changed, the services and restaurants available in this area are still catering to the old rich white people that were here before. And let's be honest, while these people create great safe communities, they sure aren't a bundle of fun, and their taste buds are about as bland as a freaking beige paint job on a 1978 Lotta. You have expensive restaurants catering to rich old white people. The food sucks and it's expensive. When we're eating out, we have to commute into Bradenton or Sarasota because, simply put, there is nothing in Lakewood Ranch that we like. All the food and restaurants and things that we like to do are in the city. There is nothing out here in Lakewood Ranch that we would actually enjoy doing. So despite the fact that we live in Lakewood Ranch, for any type of entertainment activities, we're commuting into Bradenton or Sarasota. Now, Katie and I both love the city of Sarasota. If we can find a reasonable rent in Sarasota, we will stay in this metropolitan area, but we would have to be in the middle of downtown or in an area that has much better economical mobility. The commute time from Lakewood Ranch into Sarasota can be about 45 minutes during the season time, and that means that going to restaurants we like or going to work takes far too long. If we're able to find something affordable close to downtown Sarasota, we will stay in this metropolitan area. We'll be closer to beaches, restaurants we like, and not have to deal with just a long commute. We're not going to have time to get into the economical situation and the reasons why, but as we know, the economy on Sarasota's coastline is mostly based on tourism. Tourism which has been completely destroyed for a variable amount of reasons that there wouldn't be enough time to get into on today's video. The fact that we're in love with Sarasota would almost indicate to us that perhaps what we need in our lives is a bigger city. However, that may come with an even bigger price tag than what we're paying right now. There are large affordable cities like Pittsburgh and Houston where the economy is somewhat better and also the rents are much more affordable. If we lived in a large city that had the things we like and enjoy doing, perhaps that would motivate us to make the high incomes that it takes to live in a large city. But right now we're stuck in a boring, bland suburb and we're paying big city prices for the blandness of a suburb. And that doesn't really motivate you to do much. Suburban life can be pretty boring, especially when all you do is work to pay the bills. It simply doesn't make sense. And while Lakewood Ranch is a very safe place, the safety here is paramount. I love how safe it is here. In the time I've been here, it's been incredible, especially considering I'm a YouTuber. I get recognized almost on a daily basis, but I have to admit, I mostly get recognized in Bradenton or in the hoods of Sarasota, which means that even the audience that follows my channel isn't out here in Lakewood Ranch, is out there in the city. Everything has always indicated to us that the best place for us to be is a larger city. We enjoy larger cities, and living for 3 years in this bland suburb has been overwhelming for us. Yes, it's safe. Yes, it's nice. It's beautiful and quiet and peaceful, but we are young people who want to make a lot of income and live a fast-paced life, and Lakewood Ranch is just too slow-paced for us. We would much rather be in a fast-paced city where there's more money to be made, more stressful perhaps, but we like that fast-paced lifestyle. Lakewood Ranch would be a better fitted place for somebody who had more money in retirement. But for a young person surviving in today's difficult economy, Lakewood Ranch has become pretty freaking boring. Not only are we now stuck with these ridiculous price tags of living here, but we can't even enjoy the things that there are to do out here because everything goes to rent and there's nothing left over to enjoy anything. When we lived in Fort Myers, we were living in somebody's garage. It was a very difficult living accommodation, but we were able to travel on a monthly basis. We're down to traveling maybe once or twice a year at this point. Our living expenses are swallowing up everything we make. We work and we work and we work, and we're not able to enjoy none of it. If I could find a comfortable living accommodation in a larger city, that would really put us in a position where we can enjoy life more and pay less rent. So while Lakewood Ranch is a great place, I think our time here is really burnt us out. Lakewood Ranch was a much better place 3 years ago when we moved here than it is today, but it's really our desires for a better place to live with more things to do that has driven us to decide that perhaps living in an expensive suburb that's bland isn't the place for us to be anymore. Lakewood Ranch has also put us right on the doorsteps of Tampa, which has been a huge benefit as well. But Tampa is too expensive and too trashy. It isn't an option for us. We want to live in somewhere like Miami where it's nicer and cleaner. Tampa is just too trashy. The timeline of us leaving Lakewood Ranch is something that me and Katie are going to hold private to ourselves. It isn't happening tomorrow, but it is happening in the near future. But this is definitely our decision. Katie and I have decided that it is definitely time for us to move somewhere where we can at least have more things to do and at least, bare minimum, find a more affordable living accommodation. If we cannot find a more affordable living accommodation, then we're going to have to find a bigger city with a better economy, because here right now, we're paying a lot of money for rent, but we're not able to supplement that lifestyle. See, the issue with this place is that when we first moved here, we were able to comfortably afford a lifestyle, but there's been economical changes, and now we're still stuck with this high price tag, but where's the income? And moving back to Fort Myers, I hope not. In Fort Myers, rents have dropped significantly. That means we could easily move back to Fort Myers and be economically comfortable. What we make would be more than enough to live in Fort Myers. But after living near a fun city like Sarasota, to move back to Fort Myers would be dreadful. In fact, after living in Sarasota, I see myself living in Houston or Miami or Orlando. I don't want to go back to miserable Fort Myers. After living in Sarasota, I got a taste of living near a big city. I want to be in a Miami, a Fort Lauderdale, and Orlando, somewhere fun and exciting. The notion of moving back into Southwest Florida after living in Sarasota, it would be dreadful. I mean, even if my economical situation were more comfortable in Fort Myers, the notion that I can get out there and vibe like this, like I do in Sarasota, that doesn't exist in Fort Myers. And that would be just dreadful for my mental health. I think my mental health would be better in a city like Miami, even if it was more expensive and more difficult. I mean, I would constantly be chasing the money. It would be definitely more stressful, but it would keep me preoccupied. In Fort Myers, I might be more economically comfortable. Like, we found apartment complexes in Fort Myers now that are under $1,400. But what would my mental health be in Fort Myers? I mean, look at this, dude. Look at this vibe in Sarasota. After living here around this, do you think I want to go back to living in Fort Myers? Probably not. After living here, I want to see myself in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Houston, like a bigger place with more things to do. I couldn't see myself, after enjoying this area, moving back to a smaller place. I'm getting the picture that the bigger the city, the more fun it is, the more I would want to live there. So the notion of moving to Fort Myers would seem dreadful to me. If we could find something for $1,400 or $1,500 in the Sarasota area, close to beaches, I'm not going to leave this metropolitan area. I do like Sarasota. It just isn't as easy to make money now as it was when we first moved here. After all, our plan was never for us to be here for 3 years. That was never in the plans. Our plans were to live here for 1 year and then move to a big city. We liked it so much in the Sarasota, Bradenton, Lakewood Ranch area that we stayed for 3 years. And if I do move away, I'm going to miss it a lot. I'm going to miss it a lot more than I miss Fort Myers. I'll tell you that right now. I do miss Naples a little bit, and I could actually afford to live in Naples. The problem in Naples is that every time I go down there, even to visit my dad, I have to deal with police profiling, and I don't think my heart can just handle that right now. In the time I've been up here in Manatee and Sarasota, law enforcement doesn't bother me. They don't harass me. I do my videos. I pull body cam footage. The cops here are amazing. They don't bother me. They don't harass me. You know, I haven't got pulled over once since I've been up here, guys. I've been up here for 3 years, and law enforcement hasn't pulled me over once. So clearly we can see that up here there's less police profiling. I still have customers that call me like 5 years later from Naples asking me if I do the hauling service, and I could start that business back up. My back is destroyed, but I mean, in today's world, we don't have options. We just got to do whatever we got to do to make a living, right? But anyways, you know, I could live comfortably in the Naples area, but I can't do the whole police profiling thing, man. I've been up here for 3 to 4 years, and the cops haven't bothered me once. It's been incredible to be here and not have to worry about police profiling. Here, I just do whatever I want. But I guarantee you this, staying in Lakewood Ranch, paying these ridiculous prices to live here, ain't gonna happen for too long. It's impossible. We are pushed beyond reason when it comes to affordability, and it's making our life miserable because we don't have any exploitable income. All of our income right now is undisposable. It goes directly to paying housing costs, and that's not a fun place to be in. We want to enjoy life a little bit more, and we've burnt this area out to a small degree. We've seen it, we've enjoyed it, and I think we're also ready for our next adventure. Don't get me wrong, I love this area. If you're thinking about moving up here, it is incredible. It's probably easily one of the top 3 best places to live in Florida. But I think me and Katie, after 3 years here and what we're doing on YouTube, we need a bigger picture. We like Sarasota. If we can find something affordable close to downtown Sarasota, we'll stay in this metropolitan area for sure. I mean, look at this city. Who wouldn't want to be here? I like Miami a lot, but one of the problems with Miami is that Katie refuses to learn Spanish. I've been telling her for years that she needs to learn Spanish, and she refuses to learn Spanish. And with her not knowing a lot of Spanish, I mean, she knows a little bit of Spanish, but like, if we're going to move to Miami, she should have already learned Spanish. And I've been telling her to learn Spanish on her free time, and she hasn't done it. So that will be a huge problem for her living in Miami. Also, you know, driving in Miami is kind of crazy, and if we move to Miami, she would practically be wheelchair bound, not being able to drive in the city. She's able to drive here a little bit, but I can't have her driving in Miami. It would just be way too much of a liability because her driving in Miami wouldn't get her too far. So that's another problem. Like, we both like Miami, but she's refused to learn Spanish, and if we move to Miami, well, I don't know what's going to happen to her. She's just going to have to learn some Rosetta Stone or something. The other issue with us moving to Miami is that then Katie would have to deal with disrespect and racism on a daily basis. You know, putting her as an American in Miami, it's going to be hard on her. We've already talked about this, you know, like if we do move to Miami, she's American, she doesn't speak Spanish, you know, she's going to have to deal with some racism, she's going to have to deal with some disrespect, and it's going to be a little bit, for her mental health, it's going to be a little bit difficult and challenging if we move to Miami. That means Fort Lauderdale would be a more logical option, but living in Fort Lauderdale will mean that we would have to be coughing up at least $300 to $400 more a month on top of getting a smaller apartment. One of the benefits that I have now is that I have my own office, so I can record my videos in peace. If we were to move to Fort Lauderdale, me and her would be stuck in the same room while recording, which means she can't even watch TV in the same room or whatever. So it would be kind of difficult moving to Fort Lauderdale because it's so expensive that we would have to get a smaller apartment and pay more for rent, and all that just to accommodate the fact that she doesn't want to learn Spanish. But hey, maybe on one of the next videos, we could talk about the places that me and Katie are considering moving to, because for a fact, Lakewood Ranch isn't a viable long-term option. It was nice to live here. I don't have massive complaints about Lakewood Ranch. I mean, other than the fact that it's a boring suburb with nothing good to eat and expensive. And come on, that's from my own perspective, because a lot of the people that move here tell me that they like the restaurants here and that they like the fact that it's quiet. But me, I'm ready for an adventure. This is getting way too boring for me. So again, I'm not down talking Lakewood Ranch. I'm just sure that it isn't the thing for me. I mean, when I think about the fact that it's more expensive to live here now than it is to live in Southwest Florida, and both of our parents are down there, it kind of makes you rethink why we're up here. And, that's another problem that we have is that both of our parents are in Southwest Florida, in Naples and Fort Myers. So with our parents being down there and they're getting up there in age and stuff, and we're up here, it's really hard on me and Katie to know that our parents are elderly and they're struggling and we can't be near them. It almost makes us tear up because we both love our parents, but they're down there and we're up here. It's about 100 miles. It's so difficult that my dad is down there struggling. Katie's mom is in Fort Myers. Both of them have health complications, and we're about 100 miles away. But we haven't been able to find a resolution because Katie's mom refuses to leave Fort Myers because she likes Fort Myers, and dad refuses to live in Naples. There's no taking him out of Naples, so it's like they want to live their old age in retirement down there in Southwest Florida like any rich old white person would. But then we're stuck with the fact that we want to be near them, but then if we live near them, we're in a freaking starving economy down there. So difficult choices that me and Katie have to make, and things have got really tense economically for us. It's getting to the point where it's even bringing stress to our lives. So we do have to find a more comfortable living arrangement as soon as possible. We have a lease here that we can't just get up and leave. We have to wait for our lease to expire. And we can't ruin our credit by breaking our lease because we need our credit for the next rent. So it's kind of a never-ending spiral of a trap we can't get out of. We can't get out of this trap. It's a very expensive place, and downsizing isn't easy. I mean, people don't just move somewhere more affordable. Yeah, easier said than done. That's our real situation. No hate on Lakewood Ranch, but it probably is time for us to find something better. And it isn't going to be an easy process for me and Katie, so give us your best support in the coming months.